This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by David Diamante over Zoom. David, how are you?
I'm good, Andy. Nice to see you.
You too, mate. You too. Obviously, you're back in New York now, back over in the States. Only been a few days. How are you finding kind of adjusting back to a different time zone and life back over there?
Nah, business as usual, man. Just back and cracking, just getting right at it, and no rest for the wicked, man.
Now, obviously, let's just get straight into it. You know, we've just witnessed a huge knockout this past Saturday night for the final show for Fight Camp. But the perfect place to start before we work our way through the card, you know. But David, what was your thoughts on Alexander Povetkin's fifth round stoppage of Whyte?
Well, it was an unbelievable knockout. I mean, it was really just a gorgeous punch. And it was so unexpected when you had the round before, you know, Dillian knocking Povetkin down twice, looking like he was going to handle business and take care of things. And then, you know, Povetkin is a very well-schooled fighter, and he's tough as nails. And like I said it before, it's like these are two really hard men. I mean, you know, I got to say, Dillian didn't look great in his fight against Whyte, to be honest. And, you know, his fight with Chisora, his second fight, he absorbed a lot of punishment. He took a lot of big shots. So I don't know. I mean, you know, it's like there's different ways to look at this, but you know, Povetkin is a guy who's always going to bring his A game. You know, he's a consummate professional, and you can't sleep on him. And the last thing a guy loses is his power. So fighters are always very dangerous, and especially a hurt fighter. And you know, Dillian just let that punch in, and man, it was a hell of an uppercut, and it was brutal. It was vicious, and it was effective. And you know, his head smacked off the canvas, and you know, straight knocked him out. Great punch. Great punch.
It was
so changes the heavyweight, changes the landscape of the heavyweight division, and it throws a wrench in a lot of people's plans, but that's heavyweight boxing, and this is why we watch. So, you know, Eddie said no easy fights, and there you go. I mean, I talked to AJ before this fight, and he was saying, like, Povetkin is really slick. He's a tricky fighter. And, you know, Whyte is a hard man, but he's also, I don't know if he's as technical, maybe as fast as some of these other guys. And so, you know, it's a style that could potentially pose a problem for him, and it did.
It was a stunning uppercut to finish the fight off and for Alexander to get that stoppage victory with. You've probably covered more fights than what you can remember over the years, David, but certainly say in the past decade or so, where does that stoppage victory rank, at least in the heavyweight division, in your eyes?
Well, I mean, you know, it's good. It's great. I mean, it was very dramatic the way it happened, because again, it's not like Povetkin was you know, having his complete way. I mean, he had just been knocked down twice, so you kind of thought, well, this might be it. You know, you never know when the ref's going to wave it off, or but it was it just came out of nowhere, but it was beautiful, and it was well calculated. You know, it wasn't like a mistake punch. I mean, he knew what he was doing. You know, and he ducked down, and he just came right up with it, and all the force was there. It was a compact punch, but man, it had all the force. It was great. You know, it just shows how this heavyweight division can change with one punch. And I think it's really interesting because so many people are talking about Fury and how he's on the top now, and, you know, that he's going to beat Wilder and that he's going to beat AJ. And that might be the case, but you just never know, because all these guys carry dynamite in their gloves. And so one punch can change everything. And it's just, that's what makes the heavyweights so exciting to watch.
Dillian was the favourite heading into the fight, but everybody knew about the dangers that Alexander possesses. Do you think it's because of the fact that Dillian had dropped Alexander twice in the fourth round, it did surprise everybody so much more that maybe it's brought even more of kind of a limelight on it than what he would have done if, say, Alexander had been leading the fight on the cards at that point?
I think either way, it would have been kind of a big deal because Dillian is kind of been, right on the outskirts of that top elite group for a while now. But yeah, there's no doubt. Like I said, with those 2 knockdowns in the round before, you pretty much all but waving it off and thinking, oh, this is done. This is going to be a short night, for the body snatcher. But that's not what happened at all, man. That's not what happened at all. He got chin checked, and yeah, it was a brutal knockout.
Being there yourself, obviously without a crowd in attendance, for a moment like that, and for a knockout as vicious as what that was, what was the kind of the surroundings like when you heard that punch drop and you heard Dillian drop to the canvas? What was it all like in and around you?
Well, the first thing that I'm always thinking when I see a knockout like that is I want the guy to be okay, because his head smacked off the canvas. He was out before he ever went down. That punch landed, he was knocked out, and then he fell, and he's a big man, so his head smacked off the canvas, and that's always scary. I've seen that several times before. But they had the best medical treatment there, whatever, and Dillian seemed to be fine after that. Usually when guys really are in trouble is when they go through big wars and then something like that happens. This didn't go into the later rounds, so and I don't think he took a major sustained amount of punishment. But that's my first thing. But it was surreal, because there's no crowd, so you can really hear everything. You heard the Russians, the World of Boxing guys really excited, but they were also respectful, and they didn't showboat or anything like that. I think that's one thing you can say about the Povetkin camp is they seem very respectful in World of Boxing, really good guys, and I think they're going to honor the rematch. So there was no harm either way. It was an exciting moment for them, and of course it was a disturbing moment, for everyone else that was there on the Dillian side. But for me, I never root for anyone. Of course, I want the best man to win. I want both guys to stay safe, but I just want to see a hell of a fight, and that's what we saw.
Obviously, there's been talk about that rematch. Dillian saying he wants it immediately. Everybody remembers when AJ lost to Ruiz in New York, people were saying maybe he should have an interim fight before going back in for that rematch. In Dillian's case, do you think he should go straight back in with Povetkin, or do you think he should look for an interim fight?
I think that's for his handlers and for him to decide. But if I was him, probably, yeah, I would go right back in. I think these days, scheduling these fights, I think Dillian doesn't need a tune-up. I think he's ready to go. I mean, I think he got a little bit careless. He was in there, and I think sometimes you can get lulled to sleep, and especially with a guy that's so quick and so dangerous. I mean, look, we saw it in Povetkin's last fight when he fought Michael Hunter. He was hurt early, but then he came back and he hurt Hunter. I mean, Povetkin's dangerous, and he's one of those guys that digs deep, and he's not about to quit. So he's going to give you his all. I think one of the other things too is that, because of his age, being 41, people expect that, people are always thinking you can get old overnight, which can happen. But remember, a lot of times in the lower weight classes, that's where the older you get in the younger weight classes, usually you burn out quicker. But we've seen a lot of guys at the heavyweights fight into, later ages. So it's just, you can't necessarily count a guy out because he's 41. You just never know. I mean, a guy can get old overnight. That can happen. Didn't happen last Saturday, I'll tell you that.
Let's just move through the rest of the card, David. Taylor Persoon 2, again, another terrific fight. Maybe not necessarily as good as the first fight, but it would have been very hard to live up to that. But nevertheless, a very good matchup still. What did you make of their encounter?
Yeah, I thought it was a very good fight, and I think that it's incredible that we've had so much great women's boxing in the last few weeks. I mean, Taylor Persoon, Brackus McCaskill, Belter, Terry Harper versus Natasha Jonas, and of course the Rachel Ball Shannon Courtney fight was a really good fight too. So there were like all these really good fights that have happened for women's boxing, which is very, very good. But the Taylor Persoon fight was great. I mean, it kind of played out the way you thought it was going to be. I mean, I thought it was somewhat similar to the first fight. I mean, Persoon just swarming. I mean, she's just physically imposing, and she's tough. She's strong. And I think Katie just did what she needed to do to put on a good performance and to box. And it was a tough fight. Again, it was not a gimme. It was not a gimme. Very good fight. Very good fight. And I think it lived up to the bill.
Moving on from that one, we also saw Clay Congo again, another terrific fight up until the point of a stoppage in favour of Chris Congo. What did you make of theirs?
That was a very interesting fight. I mean, man, I love Luther Clay. He's a really great guy. He's in great shape, and he's very humble. It just seemed like Too Slick was too big for him, too strong, too long. Just a bigger guy. He just seemed so much bigger. And Clay fought really well at points. I mean, there were definitely parts of that fight that I thought that he won, but it's just when Congo turned it up, I mean, it was a wrap. And but Luther Clay had the heart of a warrior, and I just think I don't know if that's the weight that he necessarily wants to stay at. He just didn't seem that size. Maybe he wants to move down a bit. I don't know. That's for him and his handlers to decide. But very happy for Chris Congo. I think he's a hell of a fighter. People have been talking that everyone's ducking him and this and that. So now he's got the WBO global strap, and hopefully he'll get some good fights, and we'll see. And again, he came in great shape too. Both guys were just absolutely fit and ready to go. And it's great to see fighters just dedicated like that. I mean, these guys were not taking this as a joke. This was a serious fight.
David, we also saw some more heavyweight action on the card with the Savage Alan Babich versus Shaundell Winters. Babich certainly an entertaining fighter. But what was he like kind of in fight camp in the hotel and that?
Oh, it was great. It was great. First of all, so the Savage, we all love him. And Alan Babich is a great guy. I did his first couple pro fights. So he loves me, and I love him. I think he's great. So we're very friendly. The moment he came into camp, we saw each other. He was like really happy. And I mean, he's just a warrior, And Shaundell Winters, I know him too. I've done his fights before also, and he's an interesting character, out of the Chicago region, Harvey, Illinois, but he fights out of Chicago. And it was interesting because he kind of came in light. He came in more at cruiser. But he also has a resume where he's fought a lot of guys, a lot bigger than Alan Babich. But Babich has the amateur pedigree, and Babich also has the youth. And I think Babich is a really interesting fighter. I mean, we don't necessarily know. I mean, he really hasn't truly been tested yet. But man, I can't wait. I mean, he seems like the real deal. And the fact that he's out there sparring with Dillian Whyte, that's great stuff. I mean, you're not going to do anything but learn. Dillian again is on the outskirts of that A level of the heavyweight division. So to be up there with a world-class fighter and getting those rounds in is going to suit him very, very well. But it was just, I'm never one for people being disrespectful or the cursing, but at the press conference, it really got heated. And as much as I don't like when guys get disrespectful, it was cool because it added more interest to the fight. And I think Shaundell Winters took a lot of he didn't like the fact that Babich said he was going to knock him out, and obviously things escalated from there. So it got pretty heated. And after the knockout, Babich was in the ring screaming, "I told you what I was going to do. I told you, But then after that, they were respectful again. And it was great having Montel Griffin in the camp too. That was really cool also, great guy, great to see him. He was training Shaundell Winters. So great to see, former WBC champ, light heavyweight champ, and really nice to see him. So, yeah, fight camp was a great experience. I mean, that was a really that was a great fight. I think we're going to really look forward to a lot of interesting fights coming up from the Savage, and especially, I mean, he's talking about Filip Hrgović,
yeah.
And like this is another Croatian charge that I think would just be awesome. I mean, this would be an awesome fight. Now, I would not, me personally, I don't think I would throw the Savage in there just yet. I think it might be a little bit early for him. I mean, look, he just had his 4th pro fight, so let's just pump the brakes just a little bit. I think we want to get him a little bit more seasoned before you do that, because I think Hrgović is really the real deal. And I think Hrgović punches through walls. I think Hrgović has real power, and he's a very dangerous fighter. So I think you've got some really great – there's so many great fights brewing on the circuit at heavyweight. It's just wonderful. And these are kind of these up-and-coming guys that are kind of feeding the future of the division. And they're dangerous. And don't forget Croatia. I mean, it's a war-torn country. These guys don't lay down, man. These guys are fighters, and they're hungry. They want it. And Babich is definitely he's got his alter ego, which is the Savage, and it lives in the ring.
Final fight from the past weekend, David, was Cullen Chelli. Again, it was a good matchup, but there's a lot of people on social media who gave Zach Chelli the fight. We saw the cards come out as a draw. What were your thoughts on it?
Well, again, both of these guys came in really ready to go, and I love seeing that. You know, Zach Chelli being trained by his dad, and I mean, he was just fit, and at the weigh-in, he was ready. And I talked to those guys, and they were really looking forward to this fight. And Jack Cullen, I mean, look, we know who this guy is. The charge from Little Lever, tough as they come, tough as nails, always comes in fight ready, and he did. But you know, the difference to me in this fight, there were a couple things. I mean, the first one is the fact that he moved up in weight. And I just don't know if it was the right weight for him. I think a lot of people, like you said, thought that Chelli won that fight. You know, my job is not to be a judge, so I'm not going to, you know, say who I thought won or not. But, you know, we all saw the fight. So, you know, Cullen might have been very fortunate to come out of that with a draw. But maybe not. You know, fans are typically not that easygoing on a fighter who gets a gift decision. You know, people don't like that. I mean, you see that happen with Timothy Bradley against Pacquiao. I mean, he got that win against Pacquiao that worked against him. You know, the fight with Hearn against Pacquiao that worked against him. There's a lot, you know, Taylor and Persoon, the first one, you know, people were doubting Taylor, you know, until she just put that to rest in this last rematch. So I don't think it necessarily helped Cullen, and I don't think it necessarily hurt Chelli. I want to see more Zach Chelli. I thought he fought well. I mean, look, I don't think he's necessarily world-class yet. There were a lot of things that I saw that he could have done possibly better, but there's a lot there, and I think he's a really tough guy, and I think there's a lot there. I mean, of course, there's a lot of levels to this game, right? So many times we talk about British level, you know, and then we talk about hold on one second here, my battery. All right, you got me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. You know, you got British level and Commonwealth level and there's European level, and then there's world level, right? So I think, you know, he's at the level that he's at, but I think there's a lot there to build on. So I think I saw a lot of stuff that is great that he could build upon. So and Jack Cullen is never in a dull fight. I mean, come on, who doesn't really love to see this guy fight? I mean, the Felix Cash fight, the Jack Cullen Felix Cash fight, I'm still going back to that fight because it was just, to me, it's what boxing is all about. And again, it wasn't world level. That's okay. It was British level, but like, you know, and Felix Cash, he had a great fight, obviously, against Jason Wellborn on the fight camp card. But you know, that fight going in, both guys just truly believed in themselves. Just freight trains going head to head, and it really, you know, it took several rounds for the wheat to start to separate from the chaff before Cash started getting the better of it, and you could start to see Cullen, you know, wilting a bit. I mean, it was brutal. It was a brutal fight, and we learned so much about Felix Cash, and we learned so much about Jack Cullen. I mean, both guys are absolute warriors. Just an incredible fight. So, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Jack Cullen, and I think he'll be back. I think he's going to go back to the drawing board, and we'll see if he stays at that weight or if he moves back down.
David, we saw some terrific fights over the entirety of fight camp. But for you, which one was your favourite? Which is the one which kind of will always stick out? I know it's easy to say Whyte Povetkin, but apart from that.
You know, it's hard to say. I think we had a lot of guys make some really good standout performances. I think Dalton Smith had a great standout performance. I think Fabio Wardley showed how dangerous he is. I think that CBS, you know, Chris Billum Smith, you know, he had that loss to Reactpor, but he's just come back so strong. I mean, that fight, the Reactpor fight, was very close. It was a close fight. It's not like he got blown out. So he's looked really good, and he looked really great during fight camp. You know, obviously, Alan Babich, you know, is an exciting fighter. Young, you know, we'll see. Chris Congo, it's going to be great to see what happens with him. It's going to be interesting to see, you know, the Rachel Ball, Shannon Courtney fight again, and also the Terry Harper, Tasha Jonas fight. You know, those fights were so close. It's very interesting. A lot of these, you know, there's a lot of people talking about these 2-minute rounds, you know, with women's boxing. They're saying that, you know, it's harder to get knockouts and it's harder to kind of put a punctuation mark on a round. And you know, who knows? Maybe that is true. I don't know. But those fights, even the McCaskill, you know, Brackhus fight it wasn't like none of those were one-sided fights at all. You know, Harper Jonas was an awesome fight. You know, and even Courtney Ball was a pretty close fight. And you know, Courtney thinks she was robbed. You know, and there's people that think on both sides that Ball won it. They think Courtney won it. You know, so very interesting. So those were all great performances. It's hard to just pick one. I mean, I think Egg and Cheese was also just a straight tear up in the backyard. I mean, it was just a straight tear up. You know, it was like a throwback fight. And maybe that was a great one of the great ones, because it was the main event of the first week, you know, and it was great. Wow, what a great fight. And Hopi Price too, you know, he had his fight against Johnny Phillips, and it wasn't the best performance ever, but I really liked it because Johnny Phillips was tough, man. And Johnny Phillips came to play spoiler. And you know, Hopi Price just listened to instructions really well. He stuck to his boxing. You know, for his young age, to be able to be composed like that and just come out with the W, it just shows, you know, a level of composure that is very impressive for you know, his 19 years. So I think that he had a good performance, and it was a great showcase, not just for, you know, any particular one fighter, but for all of British boxing and for boxing in general.
David, just a couple of things away from fight camp, just quickly get your thoughts on before I leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, we know that Frank Warren reached out to Eddie and Matchroom to try and get some, you know, get a meeting together to see if we can make some cross-stable fights. What did you make of that? Obviously, we know that Eddie and Frank hadn't spoken up until that point previously.
Well, I think that if you look at Twitter today, things have heated up a little bit. I mean, look, for me, obviously, I'm signed with Matchroom and Eddie Hearn. I believe they're the best in the world. But for me, it's not about that. It's about rising water lifts all boats. Okay. So if Bob Arum, if Frank Warren, if Golden Boy, if DAZN, if PBC, if HBO, Showtime, it doesn't matter to me. Of course, there's no HBO. I don't want people in the comments, there's no HBO, Diamante. I know that. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter. To me, I'm a boxing fan. So rising water lifts all boats. So I want the sport to do well, no matter what promoter or network you're with, you know, whether you're on Sky or BT, it just doesn't matter to me. I want to see good fights, and I think the fans deserve these fights because it's what's going to propel the sport forward. But I think that there are so many good fights. It doesn't necessarily have to be with Frank's stable against Eddie's stable, although there are some compelling fights there, no doubt. I mean, you talk about Buatsi versus Yard. I mean, come on, man, that's a cracker right there. You know, there's a lot of great fights. There's a ton of great fights, but there's so many great fights anyway. I mean, there's so many great fights for Buatsi without Yard. So, you know, I mean, obviously, I think the biggest fight in the world would really be AJ and Fury. But Fury's, from what I understand, is more with, you know, Bob Arum than with Frank. So, you know, look, it doesn't matter to me who. Look, I hope they work it out. That's great. I hope they do what they want to do. To me, I just want to see great fights, and I want to announce them. And I hope for the fans that we get these fights, because I think this is very important, Andy, is that boxing right now has a golden opportunity, because a lot of sports have not fully come back yet, or they're not full swing. And boxing has a chance to really shine. And I think Fight Camp really was great, but I think we need to propel that kind of idea forward, and not necessarily the fight camp, but just making great fights and helping our sport. This is a time when boxing as a whole can gain ground in the sports world, because, you know, at the end of the day, we really are a fringe sport compared to football, compared to American football, compared to the NBA, compared to rugby, Major League Baseball, cricket, all these sports. You know, boxing is a fringe sport. And so we have this opportunity, and I think we should seize it. And whether that's between Eddie and Frank or between whoever, it doesn't matter to me.
On the back of what you're saying about this being an opportunity, David, when you consider kind of the stunning victory for Alexander Povetkin this past weekend, is that kind of what boxing needed when coming back? Something like that, which has put the entire world's eyes back on the sport after 5 or 6 months without it, that is?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I don't necessarily think it's about, you know, Povetkin versus Dillian, but I think dramatic situations, you know, people are drawn to that, and people are also drawn to the fact that it's not just, you know, the A side against the B side. I mean, look, Luther Clay was the A side, he lost. Dillian Whyte was the A side, he lost. And I mean, this goes to show Fight Camp, no easy fights. I mean, there were a lot of, you know, Shannon Courtney lost. There were a lot of fights that were very, very close. And I think that's a testament to the matchmaking. So yeah, that's definitely what we need.
David, final thing from me. We saw a photo of yourself enjoying the cricket field. Did you enjoy? How did you find playing cricket?
Oh, it's quite fun. I mean, look, I've played it in India. I've played it in Sri Lanka. And, you know, now I got to play it here. Now, these guys, they were going hard, you know. Darren Barker and gang, they were going hard. It was a lot of fun. I mean, we had Eddie out there. We had everyone out there, you know, Garrett Davies. Everyone was out there playing cricket. And it was a ton of fun. You know, the thing is, like for me, I grew up playing baseball. So there are a lot of similarities. Of course, it's different, but there are similarities. So I know how to swing a bat, and I'm actually pretty mean with a bat. I go to the batting cages. I like to hit. So I've got mean hand-eye coordination. So I can crack it. But the thing is, because where we were playing, you know, I'm used to just cracking the ball. But if you go all the way over the fence, you know, that's like, I guess, 6 and out, something like that. So it was a little bit tough, because for me, I just want to crack the ball. You know, I'm going for that home run every time, where cricket, I think there's a little bit more nuance to it, you know. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, Fight Camp, I said it, you know, we did that karaoke thing, and I've said something like, this is Fight Camp, but it's been so much fun. It almost feels like summer camp. And it kind of did, you know. It felt like a summer camp, being with all the guys, because you're locked in this hotel, and, you know, you're hanging out with the crew every day. And it's just a lot of fun. There were a lot of laughs, a lot of good times, and you get to know people and break bread together and play sports and play football. And it was a ton of fun. You know, kicking a soccer ball with David Colwell and Darren Barker and Frank Smith and just all the guys. It was a ton of fun. So, you know, hopefully we'll see that in the future. But it was just a great experience, and one that I'll never forget.
David, I will leave you now to enjoy the rest of your day. I appreciate giving up some time. Thank you as always for speaking to us, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
Thanks, Andy. Take care now.